How are all y'all doing? Y'all feeling good? Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for coming. Um, so I wanted to tell you a couple of things sort of first before I go into the career stuff because it's important for all of you here who are in the cannabis world to understand what's actually happening, okay? So last Tuesday, Governor Cuomo dropped his budget. Does everybody know that? Okay. In the budget, they are, there's no other way to put it, they're screwing you. So they're proposing to auction off 20 licenses to registered operators, which include the 9 MROs that currently exist here, right? And that means that they will get to start 24 months before any of y'all get to start. So basically, they're like, we're going to give you 2 laps around, and then we're going to let all the other people come in and try to catch up to you. They're only allowing 3 licenses per person, and they have to be in the same industry. So if you're a cultivator, you can't own a dispensary. If you're a dispensary, you can't own a manufacturing company. And I'm not mad about that because I want as many people in the industry. But the current 9 MROs that exist will have 17 per MRO. So if there was still 10, it'd be 170 dispensaries. What does that mean for you guys? Well, it means that before you can even apply to get a dispensary license or a manufacturing license or a cultivation license, these folks will have 24 months before you guys. So why is this important? Because we have 2 weeks, 2 weeks to lobby our senators, our assemblywomen, our assemblymen, our governors, our local police to say that that doesn't happen. That's really important for you guys here so that you can get into the industry at the same day that the other people get into the industry, that corporations get into the industry. That's important for you to know. The second thing is that you don't want to only be able to get 3 licenses. So if you're somebody who's coming into the industry, you might want to have a cultivation and you might want to have a manufacturing because a cultivation will help you with your 280E taxes and your manufacturing will help you sell to dispensaries. So I just wanted to put those 2 tidbits out before I start my actual presentation because it's really important for us as a community of cannabis growers, distributors, dispensers, to really understand what's being proposed at the state level. Because you want your budget and then your legislation and then your regulation to be as equitable as possible so that everyone in this room has the opportunity to get the job, to build the business, to be part of this community of cannabis. So I just wanted to tell you that first. Okay. So I'm with the People's Dispensary. We are based in California. We also have a dispensary in Oregon, and we started in a closet. We had a retail shop, and we decided that we wanted to sell cannabis because we wanted to work with communities that were not being serviced in our area. So just so that you understand where the market stands nationwide, less than 5% of all cannabis businesses are Black-owned. By 2022, they're predicting that there's going to be a $500 billion market in the legal states. Less than 19% of all cannabis companies are owned by people of color. So even as cannabis is like legalizing, right, across the world in America, people of color and marginalized communities are still not being able to participate in that. So it's really important, wherever you land, that you understand that this is happening right now. But this is not the end. We can change the tide. And that's why I'm from California, but I'm here, not because, I mean, it'd be cool if we opened up a dispensary, but that's not actually my focus. My focus is making sure that you learn from California everything that we did wrong so that y'all don't. And part of that is being part of that conversation about the budget and also about the regulation. See, what we did is we're like, oh, they're going to tell us what we can do. They're going to tell us how to leave the informal market and get into the formal market. But that's not what happened. And that's exactly what the previous speaker was saying, like it's chaotic. But we believe in the power of cannabis. Who here believes in the power of cannabis? Yes. We think we can help transform communities that have been historically harmed by the war on drugs, by the criminalization. It is untenable for me as a Mexican person, it's untenable for my co-founders that we would have 86% of the prisoners in Rikers on cannabis offenses, while at Barclays, all of the corporations are looking at the new rollers and the new cannabis. How is this even real? Do you know what I mean? So it can't be real. So I'm just letting you know that you really need to be involved with what's happening right now. You have 2 weeks to comment on the budget, so make sure that you do that. And then after that, we're in a race to make sure that we lobby, both of the House and the Senate, so that they make sure that we have the most equitable from day one. Don't let them tell you we're going to do it later. We found out in California, they're not. So why are we trying to generate community wealth, health, and well-being? Well, we're trying to commute it for these marginalized communities, right? Because these marginalized communities, when you put them all together, are actually the majority. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we focus. Everybody's welcome. Everybody should be part of the industry. But we need to focus on these folks, right? I'm chronically ill. I have lupus. I almost died twice. I used to take 11 pills a day. 5 of them were opioids. And I used to go to the hospital once a month to get an infusion so I could be sick in my bed. I transitioned that entire regimen to cannabis. Yeah. I have not taken any medication for lupus in 3.5 years. And 3.5 years ago, I couldn't stand. This is amazing for me. And this is why this is important, right? I love recreational use. I want adult use. And also, I don't want us to forget that it's a service that we provide. Cannabis is a medicine. It's a plant. So here's the overviews of the policy recommendations that we're taking to the governor. We want to expand access and opportunity for generational wealth and prosperity for the formerly incarcerated, right? You cannot vacate all of these. That's what they're proposing to do, to vacate the cannabis, all of the people that are currently in jail, and not have anything for them to come to. So you're going to put 86% of these people into the communities, but you don't have housing for them, job training for them, all of the things that they would need to come back into society. Because I'm going to tell you right now, your best grower is sitting in the prison. Your best distributor is sitting in a prison. Your best retail is sitting in a prison. So we want to make sure that they have pathways to get into this industry. Why wouldn't you? It's a $500 billion industry. There's enough for corporate, there's enough for middle, and there's enough for small micro businesses. That's what we believe. We want to institutionalize integrity in the industry, right? That should be the foundation of a cannabis industry, especially in New York, right? Thanks for the claps. Because institutionalizing integrity, institutionalizing equity actually makes more money for the entire industry. Greed does not work in cannabis. We have always been community. We have community sessions. We have community experiences. We want to talk to people. We want to be chill with people. It's always been a community event. Don't let them make it transactional. The final thing is we want to create pathways to prosperity into the industry. And we have to do that. Other people, some corporate people might, but mostly it's up to us. This is a number of businesses that can be created from the cannabis industry. Most of these on the outside are not flower touching. So I think about counties currently in New York who have opted out. They haven't just opted out about selling flower. They haven't opted out about distribution. They've opted out of all of this industry. So many things. If you're here right now and you're like, well, I'm kind of interested in cannabis, but I don't know much about cannabis. If you have another talent, I bet you'll find it in this wheel. You can take this wheel home, it's upstairs. But this is a lot of industry. These are a lot of jobs beyond being a bud tender, beyond being a distributor, beyond being like an executive of a cannabis company. So many things that you can do here. Construction, entertainment, as we, CPA stuff, right? All that stuff is here. So this is what you could do. These are all the things that you can do in a career. So don't get freaked out if you're like, well, I'm not a grower. I'm not a distributor. I don't know how to manufacture. You don't have to know any of those things to support dispensaries, support manufacturing, to support distributions. This is what's so amazing about this industry, is that there's all of this. from something that comes from the ground. How cool is that? So we want you to be a catalyst for your community, for empowerment, to understand that your creation of jobs should be done not only at the corporate structure level, but also at the micro business level, because that's where it's going to be so amazing for the communities that you live in. Think about Anheuser-Busch and all the craft canned beers. It's really like that in some ways. And so there's a lot of places for you to really fit in, to really build your brand, to really build your edible company, or build your CPA company, or build your glassblower company. There's so many places for you to be here. But trust me when I tell you, you have to be involved in the budget that's happening in 2 weeks. That will be finalized on April 1st. And then the Cannabis Czar will come, which is what they have in the legislation. And then you have to be involved with the regulation. We did not do that in California. So the $300 million that they made in sales tax this year, or in 2018, the police asked for 60% of it. When we asked them, and we asked them to their faces, why do you need 60% of the sales tax? They said, well, enforcement. And we were like, but it's legal. What are you trying to enforce? And they were like, all of the people that are not licensed, all the illegal people. And I asked them, I said, why would you not spend the 60% of $300 million to bring the informal economy into the formal economy, right? And the reason is, and this might be uncomfortable, but the reason is because they're trying to figure out ways to recriminalize us, to recriminalize black and brown people. That's who's in jail now, and that's who they would like to stay in jail. So it's important. It's important, even if you're not a black and brown person, be an ally to black and brown people and really help us make sure that this is equitable. I say this because I can see the level of all of the kind of income that can happen for companies. So, why should we create a grassroots community that's really powerful in cannabis? Let's say that we have $500 billion. That's how much they're projected to make by 2023. Let's say that our net profit is 30%. It's not, but if it becomes legal, it will be. That's 420, which I thought was funny. And then we take out another piece of it for whatever, $126 billion. That's going to be the final net profit. And we give 10% of that away to communities who have been harmed by the war on drugs or who need this money. You can give $12.6 billion to communities. And you are still going to make $12 billion. So fight me on the 10%. And this is what's important about the cannabis community, is that we've always been givers. We've given free medicine to people. We understand the power of the plant. And we should not let anybody get away with not giving back to the communities where they sit. Because although New York has tons of tourism, I guarantee you, you're going to make the most money by the community that surrounds your dispensary. So you should take that money and put it back into that community, because that community more than likely has been overly policed, overly criminalized, and half of their young men have sat in prison for over 5 years. So this is what we do. This is our possibility. This is our equity model. And it's not for everybody, and I'm not saying that you should do it, but I think that if you own a company, you should start to think about, how am I going to put equity as the foundation of my business? So what we do is we allow ownership percentage to grow wealth in our community. So what does that mean? Non-accredited investors can invest in the dispensary in their city. If you don't know what that means, the reason it's overwhelmingly white in cannabis is because the people that are investing are called accredited investors. And that means that they have made at least $200,000 the 2 years prior to the investment, the year of the investment, and expect to make it the year after the investment. Or they have $1 million liquid cash, not including their primary residence. Guess what? I am not an accredited investor. None of my partners are accredited investors. Our families aren't accredited investors. The people we service in our dispensaries aren't accredited investors. So how can we make money for them? And that's by allowing them to invest into, so like in Oakland, we have 102 small investors. They've raised $1 million. On like 1,000, 5,000, 12,000, 50,000. So when we go public, either on the New York Stock Exchange or Toronto, if it doesn't happen soon enough, they bought their shares for $1. So whatever we get to be listed at, let's say we're listed at $20, your $1,000 is now $20,000, right? They're projecting that shares in cannabis companies like ours will be worth $150 to $220 a share in 2022. How do you create generational wealth for people who don't normally have access to generational wealth? This is how. We offer housing stipends for our employees. It's expensive to live in Oakland. It's expensive to live in San Francisco. It's expensive to live in LA, right? Yes, right. So how do we take money and make sure that our employees can live in the cities and communities that they service? Because I will tell you, a dispensary that doesn't hire from that area is not going to make as much money as a person who does. Because people want to see people they see at the Trader Joe's or that they see at the Duane Reade. They're like, oh, you're my bud tender. You know, they want to have that feeling of community. So that's why we provide housing stipends. We have a community reinvestment fund that sits with every one of our dispensaries and any one of our dispensaries that we will open. What does that mean? We give 10% of all of our net profits into the community reinvestment fund. We pay for the administration of that investment fund, but the community decides where the money goes in their community. In Oakland, people who are going to run that fund have decided that sex trafficking is one of their big things. Houselessness is one of their big things. In Fresno, it's the gangs. In LA, it's youth incarceration. So they get to decide where they're going to distribute that money. And there's 3 ways that they can distribute it. They can give a grant to somebody who has a small micro business and just give the grant to them. They can loan money to companies that are going to be larger and say, we're going to loan you this money, and then you have to pay it back. They can invest in the company and say, we're going to take 5%. We're going to give you $500,000. And then they will pay back into the reinvestment fund, not to us, to the rest of us, so that it's always making money and always making sure that people that don't have access to capital have access to capital. Employee benefits also include owning part of the company. It's very important because your employees are literally the backbone of your business. And if you don't take care of your employees in a way that has dignity, when you're not paying bud tenders $12 an hour, but you're the largest company that has largest cannabis company in the world right now, that's some bullshit. And then we incubate minority-owned cannabis-related companies. So that's another thing that we do. So right now we're incubating a small group of people in Fresno. They're young cats, 21 to 24. They were runners and holders for the local gangs there. We had to go talk to their OGs and say, hey, they are perfect to build grow houses. Can you release them, make them not hold, make them not run, and let us give them some money to build a business? And they said yes. And so now, that was a year. That was a year ago, and now they have a warehouse, they have projects, they're doing really, really well, and that was a very tiny bit of money. Let me tell you, it was not a big amount of money, but they had the wherewithal and the go-to. So all I want to say to you is that whatever you do, however you think, whatever you feel, just really understand the power of the amount of money that's coming into this industry, and think about how you can help those who have been less fortunate than you, those who have been incarcerated, those who have been harmed by having their mother or father not there for them as children. Really think about that, because you have this opportunity to create immense wealth and also immense good. It doesn't have to be all. It can be some, so that everyone can feel good. Thank you.